everybody, it's 5:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you for your on-time attendance, we really appreciate it. I'm going to declare that we have a quorum. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of August 26th, previously distributed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? So voted, thank you. And thank you again, Debbie, appreciate it. PMA.
All right. First thing on the presentation tonight is just a financial update, and we have no new invoices, so that's the end of the financial update.
I like it brief.
Yeah. And then we're
Sorry, Mitch,
Yeah.
Kathy, no issues on your end?
No issues.
Okay, great, thank you.
Love new invoices.
all right.
Yeah, and just
Yeah,
to
you
pause
can jump in
here,
here.
Mitch. So what we're going to do tonight, we have a very important decision, obviously, with the delivery method. So we had a pretty detailed overview some months ago, and we said that we would defer the vote until tonight, get past the summer, when obviously we had some issues with attendance. And so we're going to have a review with, basically the same information. And obviously you may want to have further discussion on that, but once PMA finishes their review though, what I'd like to ask for is a motion one way or the other. But I'd really like to have the discussion with a motion on the table, because I just feel that's the right way to do it. So that's going to be the approach, and then we'll go from there, so.
All righty.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. As Gary's mentioned, we did review these slides, I think it was back in June, for the different delivery method, general contractor versus construction manager at risk. So just to go through the definitions, a 149 by Massachusetts General Law is a design bid build general contractor. So it's a traditional design bid build where the architect will completely design to 100% before we solicit trade bids and general contractor bids. We then have a pre-qualification process, and the lowest responsive and pre-qualified bidders awarded the contracts. For a 149A construction manager at risk, the architect will complete design, but may begin to solicit early work packages before 100% construction documents. So trade bids are solicited, the construction manager is selected on quality and team determined to be the most beneficial for the project. Then we'll go through a GMP, which is the contract with that contractor, and the values negotiated further in the design phase. 149, so general contractor also allows for limited early packages for non-vertical construction, so road works, ground improvements, utilities, septic, etc. Early packages under this sometimes present additional risks to the owner by including an additional contractor. It can get a little messy that way, but there are projects with successful early packages as well. For 149A, construction manager at risk, the CM is in early, so they take part in design and logistical planning. It also allows for early packages in construction, but all construction, so roadwork, utilities, septic, foundations, steel, which can help improve the schedule and save cost savings overall. The CM will take ownership of all phases of construction as well. This chart just points out both delivery methods with a couple categories: dollars, difficulty, bidder, and a pro at the end. So for 149, general contractor, there's no restriction on the dollar value of the project size. For a CM at risk, it must be greater than $5 million to use a CM at risk. For difficulty, for a general contractor, it's best for projects with limited phasing or less complicated logistics or site. And the opposite of that, a CM is better for a complex project with phasing and logistical challenges. For the bidder category, general contractor, as we said, favors the lowest qualified bidder, and there is a pre-qualification process, whereas a CM favors the most qualified contractor determined by the selection committee. It's not price-based, as the general contractor would be. And then a couple of pros for general contractor. There is some savings that's demonstrated not using CM at risk, sometimes 5 to 10% on the overall costs. And then the CM is part of the team. They're early involved. They help out a lot in coordination and design logistics and design document reviews. This next slide is just focusing on the 149 general contractor delivery method. So a couple of pros, lowest pre-qualified competitive bid is awarded. The debt exclusion amount would be 5 to 10% less, right? Because that's we were talking about that savings with the delivery method. Drawing and specs are 100% owed, so there's no qualifications and assumptions. Now getting into the cons, it's a pre-qualification and bid protests tend to be more common with this type of delivery method. There's no GC involvement during the design phase and reliance on 2 independent estimators. Early packages for limited scopes, the early packages are possible, but the scope's limited to that horizontal work as I mentioned previously. The owner rejection of an unqualified or unresponsive contractor can delay the start of the project, so we can try to work through that in the pre-qualification process, but if there is a bid protest, then that can come up at the beginning of the project and slow the start of the project. Logistics defined without input from the contractor, so those will be incorporated into the 100% drawings, and then the contractor would own them based on the lowest qualified bidder winning the bid, and then obviously the owner must choose the lowest qualified bidder. For 149A construction manager, we have pros and cons. So it's qualification-based selection determined by the owner, so a little bit more control on that end. Involved partner throughout design and construction. I think I've said that a few times now. They're on early. They help with logistics, design estimates. They are less complicated procurement of early work packages, so we could get going on steel and foundations a little bit earlier with overall schedule savings. Lower chance of bid protests. They also include buyout savings or they include allowances in their GMP to cover anticipated unknown costs, providing increased confidence in the final project construction phase. And then also any buyout savings or CM contingencies would be returned to the owner upon completion if they are applicable in that situation. Again, on the other side of the GC, the CM at risk tends to be a little bit higher, 5 to 10% is kind of what we're seeing in the market. Not a cost-based competitive bid process, it's more selection-based. And then specification qualifications can create a more complicated buyout process. So it's a little more complicated, but nothing that this team couldn't manage. And then I think we have specific to the Roselle Elementary School project.
And so I know one of the big questions is what's the cost difference and what are really the benefits or the drawbacks of either one. Mitch went through the generalities, but for this project, based on the estimator numbers they're running, they're showing the CM at about a $6.7 million premium. But when you bring on the CM, we're looking at about a 6-month cost savings at roughly $200,000 a month for general condition savings. So if you put those together, we're tracking a CM that could potentially be about $5.5 million more expensive than the GC buyout. It will save you 6 months of schedule. You can get kids in a building. The second phase of the building would be available to take kids 6 months early. Is what it results in. One of the major advantages for the CM is the early packages. We can do limited early packages with GCs. You can do some flat work. You may be able to do a septic. There's some risk in both of those. With the CM, you can do all of it. You can do your road work. You can do a septic. You can do concrete, steel foundations. You can pre-order switchgear equipment. You can pre-order rooftop equipment much more easily. So if you're looking at certain items that are very, very long lead times that could challenge the opening of phase 1, the CM can help you get over those humps and guarantee or more readily guarantee that building is going to be open when you need it to be open. Also with the construction logistics here, we've been talking in these meetings about how it is a tight site. It's a challenging site to get in and out of. And bringing on a CM, you would typically bring them on early, maybe in DD, certainly 60% CD, and have them help plan the logistics of this site. How are you going to bring steel and how are you going to bring foundations in, where on a GC project you don't get that. It'd be us and the design team trying to work that out in advance for them. With the CM, they come on early and they're going to take some ownership of that and use their expertise and help make sure that logistically it works in the most efficient way it can. So there is certainly benefits that way. We also look at the proximity to wetlands. We think, oftentimes GCs, they're low bid. So they are looking at the plans and specs and they were doing everything to, as least expensive as possible so that they can win the bid. On the CM side, which part of the premium why it's a little more expensive is they are not necessarily doing that. They're not really going overboard, but I think particularly with wetlands protection, they do arguably a better job at making sure that all the protections are in place and that they're replaced as they're supposed to be. And we are very sensitive and very concerned about the wetlands around this area. We think it can be done easily, but having a CM working as a partner with the town in this may provide added protections and added benefits and added reassurances to Concom that those protections are going to be maintained throughout the construction process. So again, the one thing about the CM2 is you get to pick who your CM is. With the 149 bid environment, we have limited ability to reject contractors and not pre-qualify contractors. If there are contractors who feel that they should be pre-qualified, we would likely see bid protests from them, and it may delay the process. With the CM, we won't have that. You pre-qualify the CMs, you interview them, and you pick the team that you think is the best fit without price. So there's no price component to it. It's just qualifications-based selection. So it gives you a lot more flexibility on choosing the contractor that you think is the best fit for West Bridgewater in this project. Low bid contractors certainly have a higher risk. It's the 149 game where they're looking at everything in the drawings and they're at the same time trying to find everything that's not included, and they already have their list of change orders before the job starts. It's just the nature of low bid work. And are concerned about costs around that, but it's also concerned about schedule, because once they start adding items, or if there's scopes that are missing or items that are missing, that relates into time and schedule and delay, and it can challenge the opening of the building and challenge how to keep your schedule on time, where CM is really looking to fill those gaps early to help the design team make sure that all of those gaps are filled before we go out to bid and that the project is delivered on time. I think they're much more incentivized to have a building in a schedule completed on time than a GC would be. And then again, there's a risk of a low bidder being understaffed, underqualified. They're gonna, there's qualifications, and we'll pad the spec with certain qualifications, but at the end of the day, they could, we don't show who you're getting, who the staff is. We're seeing you're vetting their staff, and you're making sure that everyone who you're approving to be on the site is a qualified staff, and that they're gonna perform at the highest level. And when we go into the schedule, we can see how the schedule progresses and where there may be some risks in missing dates. So,
Before you move on.
Yes.
The CM at risk is still, they're not doing most of the actual work themselves, they're hiring contractors to do
Correct.
that work.
yeah,
Are they bidding that work out, or can they just hire whoever they want, or they have to do?
Most of
bid?
filed sub-bids.
well, so there's two parts of it. There's this filed sub-bid portion, which still follows the standard filed sub-bid law, which is 19 sub-trades, depending which one you do. It has to go to public bid through the process. Any other bids, it's typically they have to present 3 bids, and they have to de-scope them and show the owner that it was in a competitive bidding process. It doesn't just go out to they will certainly bring in their favorite contractors, because the people they work with is really who you want them bringing to the table. But they are required to bid it in a manner that shows that it is a competitively bid process, and they're not just picking up a price.
So it's not general bids, that you still have that same risk of them getting somebody that comes in low that is understaffed. They don't have to take the lowest of those people and pay.
On the filed sub-bid side,
Not on the filed sub, it's on the
that's
regular
correct. Yeah.
contract.
But even on the
Same would apply for general contractor, though. It's kind of the same boat, right? They're bidding the work as a general contractor, but they're still have filed sub-bids, and they're still also, they own the whole scope, but they're also probably still going out getting competitive quotes for the other subs.
But I think your point is the difference is with the GC may be picking all of the lowest, so they can get their number as low as possible, where the CM will be presenting those trades and telling about the risks, and then you have the opportunity to maybe pick someone who isn't the necessarily lowest bid, but is advantageous for a certain
So
reason.
the committee makes the decision on the contract as the sub, the CM uses.
We'd have to see how
That's-
this is set up. The CM will present the subs that they plan and make a recommend to award, which we would then present to the town to say, this is the sub that they plan to use for steel, which is a non-filed sub bid, and it would have to be approved in some manner by the district, yes.
So who would be making that decision? Is it this committee, or is it some other one?
I'm not sure if the logistics of that has been determined.
Sometimes there's a smaller group that's a little, can be reached on a more regular basis and can be a little more quicker in making decisions. And I think that's really a decision for
Right.
you guys to
We'd
make,
have to have
for the
discussion
district.
about how we want to set. I mean, my preference would be if we could manage it, would be to have it. I mean, that's why we're here. Yes, we're a big group, but all in all, we've had a pretty good track record of attendance and working together. So I'd much rather prefer that than subdividing us into a smaller group at critical decisions like, picking subcontractors.
I think with, and to James' point, it's more, sometimes we'll have like a technical review committee who will review and go into great detail all of the RTAs, so that when we come to the committee, they're gonna look at that smaller group and say, we've reviewed this in detail with the CM and we feel very comfortable. Here's the list of the recommended to awards for this period, and then the committee can take a vote on, if it's a vote or it's just an approval, or just, like, we saw it and we take no exception to it, depending on the function of how you want to do it. But either way, even if there was another approving body, we would say that everything should come in front of the committee to say, here's what's been awarded, and on a monthly basis, certainly, this is the value of your GMP, here's your line items, and this is what the buyout was, and there will be some that will be over budget, there'll be some that will be under budget, and then we'll show you the balance of where it sits on a monthly basis.
And that's exactly what we did with the OPM at the start of this process. We had a subcommittee that did that heavy lifting and then brought the recommendation to the full committee.
So I had a question. How much input does the MSBA have, or how many votes do they have on the CM?
It's a public procurement process, so they're not involved in it.
Okay.
It's not like the designer selection, it is just by the
Yeah.
district.
So do you have any experience with eliminating bidders at the pre-bid process? Do you have another project where that's happened and you've had bid protests?
Yes, we have.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
We had two projects recently where the low bidder did not disclose legal proceedings, so they filed an emergency injunction, and they took us both projects to court, and both of them sided with the districts and said that the district really has the ultimate authority to make a decision on whether or not a bid is acceptable. I guess responsive would be the correct term, to make sure they fit all the criteria. And that was it.
So dovetailing into that, who determines the qualifications of the individuals or the groups who determines the basic
The
qualifications?
pre-qualification.
So there's a pre-qualification process that happens.
Yes.
And so there is this committee, through either a subgroup or with assistance from the design team and the OPM, will have a list of criteria that says you must have done a certain amount of projects within this dollar range within this amount of time, and certain, maybe you want some to be schools, maybe you need them to be MSBA schools, maybe you just need them to be general schools. So we will
those
have some guidance.
qualifications are coming before this group, is that what you're
Correct,
saying?
yes.
Okay,
And
thank you.
this group will determine what is a pre-qualified contractor and filed sub-bid contractor look like for this project. If you go GC, then you'll have the same determination for a GC, and for a CM, you have to pre-qualify the CMs as well. So there'll be a list of criteria that have to be set up as part of this bid process. And then when they're submitted, we will vet them, and then if there's any discrepancies that we see, we'll bring them in front of the committee, and then it will be up to the committee to decide if that discrepancy is enough to say they're not a responsive bidder, or if it's something that you could waive as a minor flaw.
So I had another question. In your experience in the schools that you've built, and we'll just stay with schools, or that you've been involved in, how many have been GC versus CM?
We do both.
We do both, probably 50-50.
50/50.
I don't know, like if that.
Our recent experience has been primarily CM, but recent, I'll say the last 10 years. Truth is that as costs have increased in the last few years, more communities have opted for GC. I also want to address, and so lately we've had a few GC projects.
So if total costs have increased in terms, or by the time you put the change orders in?
No, construction costs have gone up.
Right, no, I
Yeah,
understand that.
and so just people looking at bigger price tags are having more trouble swallowing the added cost of GC.
And I would say that for us, we look at every project individually, and going into it, we try to go into it with open eyes, and we don't say this is definitely GC or definitely a CM from day one. We try to let the process work itself out, see how challenging it is, see what the concerns are. Site logistics. If you had a big open field in the 20-acre field in the middle of West Bridgewater that was dry up on a hill,
Single phase.
I don't think we would probably be having a conversation off the side, but I think we would say, hey, it's single phase, this is an easy peasy, there's no there's no reason to even think about paying any extra money, and we would probably advocate strongly for that. This site is not that.
But at the end of the day, do you think you save that additional money that you've, built in up front by using a CM in the time saved and the logistics, things being done correctly versus going back and redoing with a GC, having always the lowest bidder?
It's hard to say, honestly, it's hard to even say what the CM premium is, because you never actually bid a CM project and the same project as the GC, so we're relying on our estimators to try to help us thread the needle of what they're seeing from a GC and a CM world. The other thing is there are certain kind of intangibles where if that building is scheduled to open for the school year of 2028 and it doesn't, because of whatever reason, and it's late, and we're saying that there's probably a larger risk of that if you do GC on this job than if the CM. What does that actually cost you? And is there a tangible cost to that, or is there the cost of students being in an older building for an extra year? In certain districts it's okay and it's not that big a deal. Other districts it's detrimental, meaning they have to put a ton of money into that building just to keep it going for one more year. So there's a lot of factors that play into what you consider the cost of being late.
I have two things I'd like to mention. One is a bullet that Sean didn't speak to on maybe the slide before this, just because there's a lot here. But this issue of proximity of an occupied school and your district's youngest students, proximity to construction, I think is something to think about. A CM manages that typically, I'll say, better than a GC. And they've got more staff, I think that's really the big issue. They've got more staff to help manage that kind of issue. The other thing is, you asked a question about pre-qualification process and the process of cutting out GCs. It's very difficult to disqualify GCs. You can, districts do. I'm working with a client now, a city that builds a lot, and they definitely had contractors they did not want to work with, and they did not feel comfortable disqualifying those bidders because of they knew that there would be a protest, and they knew that it would cause a delay.
Just a quick question about the timing. When you said maybe 6 months, is that looking at splitting that between the two phases? So potentially 3 months earlier for phase 1 and then phase 2, overall 6 months?
So overall, we're looking at 6 months. In the CM scenario, we're looking at that, the move-in June of 2028, so potentially to open for that 2028-2029 school season, and that's because you're able to start foundations and steel earlier. So with that time savings, you're going to shift that back a few months. And then because you can move it in June, you can then start demoing Roselle earlier, which then you can start constructing the next phase earlier. So it's kind of a waterfall effect that pulls it back. On a GC, you're probably not going to finish that construction until November of 2028, which means your move-in's going to be December, January, and then it would be certainly a district decision whether to keep the kids in the Roselle for the rest of the year or to move them, mid-year. We've done both. It is a little bit problematic, particularly for Mark and dealing with his unions and trying to get the teacher's time to pass out, but it's certainly doable to move in that building. But you cannot start demoing it until that building's completely moved out and then moved into the other building, where if it's over summer break, you have a lot more flexibility into really getting that stuff out of there day one and then get the wrecking ball in very quickly afterwards. It's just tough to have teachers pack up their stuff mid-year. As it's much easier to do towards the end of the year, start throwing out the stuff you don't want, putting up in boxes, and then the day the school closes, you move those boxes over in a week and they can start asbestos remediation.
And to have a buffer is important in terms of if you think it's going to be June, it may not be June.
We'll need to make that decision long before June, so really in February, we'd have to determine, furniture's coming and we're on track to finish this and be in that building. We'll know that. We have to know that a lot longer before, so the teachers will have plenty of heads up to know they're packing around.
I'm confused. The kids can move in June under the CM list. And when do they get out of school, the second week of June?
So,
So if that's the case, they're out that second week, well, they can't, CM really gonna give you that much more time they can start
meaning,
doing anything on the demo to keep the next fit, because till the kids are out of school, they can't do the demo.
right,
So you're moving furniture and stuff into the park that's done, doesn't really make a difference on the end when the kids get in, because those,
it only does because in the GC phase, they don't get in until January of the next year. Right?
That's actually what
I'm
these next slides
I'm having
are.
trouble considering why go all the way to January, because they could still, it would be harder, would have to do separate packages, you could still do some of the flat work and that stuff earlier before Roselle gets taken down. You could still be doing a whole bunch of work on that, going straight ahead. So kids are gonna only be getting out of school a couple weeks later, you can start demoing Roselle at almost the same time.
No, so if you go back to the, Mitch, one slide ahead of time.
Oh, this is.
Yeah, so here's the CM, here's the CM project. So construction bidding for CM, so we have two early packages, if you look at the top. Early package one, which is foundation and
Yeah.
steel. Oh, I'm sorry, septic and site, and then early package two, foundation and steel. So because you're able to start your foundations and steel earlier, that's what allows you to finish that building, 100% construction, done at the end of June of 2028. If you don't have the early steel in, if you can't get the concrete and the steel going early, you're not gonna have that building done in June of 2028, allowing you to start knocking down that Roselle building. So, that's really the savings there. So without that, it pushes your completion date into, if you go to the GC slide, it pushes your construction completion date into late November of 2028.
I might have to take your word for it, but I don't see how getting the kids into the school in June.
No, I'm sorry.
Say,
Your kids won't move into the building in June, but your furniture and all that will move over the summer. And then you'll start knocking that building down while there's nobody in it.
are we keeping the furniture? No.
Probably not.
So if we're not keeping the furniture, it comes back to the same thing. Do you really say
For a retro.
they can start demoing Roselle unless they get out the first week, the first day of June under CM? They can start demoing Roselle the second week of June,
I think
say
we're-
in 2 weeks.
But in
Yeah,
GC,
GC,
the building's not ready to
Yeah.
move furniture in.
You don't have to move furniture into the new building to start knocking down Roselle.
But you
That can still
you
be
need to move
done.
the kids out.
No, they'll be out, when school's out,
They're-
the kids are
They
out.
won't have anywhere to go.
They won't, the building won't be ready. When we say you can, sorry,
Building-
let me rephrase it. You can't move kids into the new building, into the first phase building, until November of 2028 in the GC scenario. You can move them
No
in.
kids.
No
kids.
kids, no kids.
0 kids.
That's why it's a longer, it's pushed out.
So they will start, under GC, they will start the 2028-2029 school year in the Roselle building. And they will have to be in that until January, it looks like January, because once the building is under construction, we still have to move in new furniture. So in technology, we have to put up the different packages. So the building is ready to accept furniture, all the new furniture shows up. That's gonna take about 2 months to get that, the TVs, the Wi-Fi, the network, the switches and all that in. So that can't happen until, the start of that is December 2028. So while the kids are still in Roselle, we're gonna be doing all that. And that building is gonna be ready for them to move in, basically
February break.
February 1, 2029. They're not gonna move in February 1. They might move in February break, because that gives us a week to move all the boxes and things like that. Because the teachers then need to pack up all their affairs, and we need to get that into the new building, then the teachers need to unpack and set up their rooms and things like that. So that's a much more difficult process during the school year, but besides that, from the CM side, basically the kids will leave that June, and then when they come back the next year, it'll be in the new building. And during that summertime, they're gonna start knocking down the Roselle, where they can't do that in the GC world, because the kids need to move back into that building.
It also means that in CM, as Sean kind of just said, in the CM model, a lot of the building, maybe all of the building, but maybe not, will be demoed over the summer, like Sean just said. In the GC version, that demo is happening with kids in the building, in the new building next door, which, isn't always awesome. But
Yeah, the hope would be when they come back in the building, the Roselle will be down on the ground.
pretty much gone.
All right, let's take a pause here. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of questions that people have, discussion items. All this discussion's been good as part of the overview. But I think I do want to go back to my earlier comment and try to get a motion on the table that we can now move forward with further discussion. And whatever time that takes until all your questions and concerns are answered.
I can make a motion to continue discussion, to move forward with delivery method of a CM at risk for the project.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
All right.
Just for frame of reference in terms of this building, I believe we completed this building by June. We had all summer to do everything. And then we moved in September, so it's a very similar timeline to the first one.
By the skin of our teeth.
Very close.
So this building, was it built with general contractor?
It was.
Okay.
The GC.
So it just happened to be that the timing worked out that way. It's nothing to do with whether it's the DC or the construction manager at
In
risk.
that, yes, what I just said, yes.
How often do your schedules at this phase remain accurate once shovels break ground? Are you fairly confident that it's worth talking about that timing of demoing the building in June?
I think, I mean, at this level, with the level of design we're at, the numbers, you know, the design team has talked about the durations, and we're pretty confident the durations are acceptable for a CM to execute the amount of work that it needs to do in that time frame. Yes.
Okay, so you're pretty confident that that schedule will be pretty close to what really happens?
Yes, and I guess the other advantage with the CM is they're gonna come in and tell us what their schedule is, and they're gonna have to own that schedule, which gives them a little bit more, I guess, it gives them a little bit more ownership of the, and accountability towards that schedule. Where in a GC, we're gonna tell them this is the scheduled time, and you're gonna bid it on that, and, it's harder to, it's harder to, you know, you go to a CM and say, this is your duration, it's not ours, so you better, you know, figure out how you're gonna hit these durations.
So what are the order of magnitude of change orders that you typically see from a general contractor?
It depends on the,
It varies on.
I'd say, I mean, generally a 1 to 2%,
Okay.
but it depends on a lot of different things. I mean, like, sometimes you'll find latent conditions. We had a job site where they found soils full of asbestos, and it cost a ton of money to bring out. So percentage-wise, it was really, really high, but it was really one event that triggered it. It was because they knocked down a building years ago and buried it in the ground, and it was full of asbestos. So it wasn't a design error, it was a differing condition.
And we build in, you know, construction contingencies into the overall construction cost.
How do you hold either the GC or CM to their timelines? Are there financial incentives or disincentives for not meeting them?
Typically disincentives, like liquidated damages if they're late.
And then I had another question regarding the GC. You mentioned that we can add either disqualifying items or pre-qualifying, correct?
Correct.
So just hypothetically, could a disqualifying item be previous legal action with a specific contractor?
Yes, but I would, the problem with it is if you had previous legal action, anyone can sue anyone, right? So any contractor that's done enough work to qualify to do this size work has likely had some sort of legal action against them in the past, so you're gonna disqualify every single contractor, whether it be disgruntled someone who they didn't owe money to and it turned out fine. It becomes harder to disqualify one single person, which I think is the intent of really the qualification process. You're not supposed to single out a DCAM certified contractor to say you're not qualified to do this project, even if you feel it late. It's really trying to level the playing field and make sure that bona fide contractors who are certified under the DCAM program are able to bid these projects.
I mean, I would think that based on the complexity of this project, a CM is really the right way to go. You've got not only phasing, I've looked at this site 1,000 times. I still don't understand where you're gonna do your lay down during construction. That really hasn't been addressed. 10,000 square feet on that athletic field, just not gonna be enough space. And so, I think you need someone that's gonna be early. There's a lot of limitations on this site. I know it costs more money up front. Nobody's ever accused me of trying to spend more money. But although we have a choice, I just don't think it's a viable choice. I think CM is the right way to go.
Can I ask a question about optics? Am I correct in understanding that a CM comes with the optics of being more expensive? Is that an accurate statement?
I think so.
Okay. And if that is the case, is that going to negatively impact the town's perception of, ultimately, we have to put forward a proposal that the people in the town will vote to pass, correct? So if we opt for what is perceived as the more expensive option, even though maybe it's the right way to go, or it's not really gonna be more expensive when you take into consideration other things, is that going to be something that people point to and say, well, they're not doing this as efficiently as they could be?
I think that the decision needs, I think that the decision needs to be defensible, and that the optics, maybe that a CM is more expensive, but also that there's more management, that there's more dealing with construction next to little kids, that there's, that there's good reasons that whichever decision is made, there's good reasons to make whichever decision that is, and that how the message is rolled out can help control the optics.
I mean, one way to do it, just from past experience, is to look at the decision as to why we went GC on this project, and did not do CM at risk at this project, and do a comparison, speak to something that they're familiar with in this site, and the fact we were just going from there to here. Did we have issues? Sure we did, during construction, but it's just, it's a whole different situation we're in with the site that we're trying to work with. And if you just do a comparison of the thought process that went behind the decision the committee made years ago for this building compared to where we are now for the site, for the Roselle site, I think that might be one way to at least try to make our case that we're making the best interest of the town if that vote is successful, that we have taken it.
I would also think the shorter duration of the project is a plus, and also the potential cost savings for change orders, pre-settlements considered.
I think oftentimes we see that the CM pool, and I don't know if it's the right term, is maybe a more sophisticated bunch of contractors who have better tools, that are better able to manage the town's risk on this. And so while you may be paying a little more, you're probably, as part of that payment, you're definitely buying some risk out of there, where the CM is helping you mitigate that risk, and there's certainly value in that.
Other questions? Mark?
I think you put up $5.5 million was your estimated difference.
That's based on our,
Between, just assume the exact same project, $5.5 million less to use a GC than to use a CM at risk.
based on our last estimate from our, from PMC, our estimator, yes, that's what we're calculating, yes.
That's on the total construction cost, so eventual savings, or extra cost to us from CM at risk is a little more than half that. Would that be a fair thing to say? We're not, assuming that the MSBA funding goes, it's not costing us the extra 5.5. We have to bond it, but when the job's over, it should cost us less, so there are more what would you say, ineligible costs under CM at risk than under GC?
I think you're over the cost cap for the square footage cost, so anything that's over that would be 100% on the district.
It's a question of how you look at it.
Or if you apply the MSBA reimbursement rate to the $5.5 million.
But if we're over, it doesn't matter, because it's not going to be applied.
But yeah, then the question is the overage on the electrical, or is it on the steel, or is it on the CM? So to James's point, it depends on where you put the overage.
It's a hard thing to cars.
But I
Bottom
will
line,
say,
there's a cap.
there is a cap,
Yeah.
you're over it, so anything that goes, the way I look at it is you're already at the cap, so anything beyond that is at the district's cost.
Okay.
So that's what brings the effective reimbursement rate down.
It's one of the things, sure.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'm gonna call for the vote. The motion on the table is to accept a delivery method of construction manager at risk for this project.
Second.
We've already made the motion. Thank you. Reinforce that second, so I appreciate that. That's the motion that's been made in second, so I'll ask again, any more discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
No.
Wish to be recorded as such, David? Okay. All right, the motion passes by majority vote. Thank you. Moving on.
Okay. So today we're gonna, we've already done this bottom item with GC CMR presentation and decision. We're gonna review the schematic design documents. We've already reviewed the project schedule, and we'll review the website questions and answers. Then we'll, at the next meeting, we'll review, sorry. Then in 2 meetings, we'll review the cost estimate. Documents did go to the estimators today. So it takes some time to get all that information back. In 2 meetings, we'll be able to review that. And the meeting after that will be a vote to submit, hopefully, positive vote to submit to the MSBA.
So just a reminder that these October meetings, including the one obviously when we're taking the vote to submit, we have changed our date because of the deadline with MSBA. So it's the first and third Tuesday instead of the second and fourth. So those calendar invitations were, Mark sent out all the invitations for schematic design. So those invitations should be on your calendar for those 2 dates of October 7th and 21. But I just want to highlight that that's different than our normal schedule because of the deadline of our submittal to MSBA.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. I'm going to start with some recap and some new information related to the traffic analysis. This slide you saw, the gist of this slide is essentially, and the next slide too, is essentially that there's more traffic on the site, which we know because there's more people on the site. The existing the way that the traffic analysis works is they count the number of trips, which is a car driving in or a car driving out. In the morning, the existing trips to Roselle is 144. And if you combine that with Howard, it's 341. And then it's just a math equation, a proportional increase. But when you increase the enrollment to the 1,070, based on our increased enrollment, the number of trips goes to 581. The key here is that approximately with the staggered starts, there'll be approximately 236 cars coming in the morning at the first shift, and approximately 176 coming with the second shift. That's if I've got this right. Where the first shift is lower and the second shift is upper, which I think I may have heard the other day.
We probably look to flip-flop.
Flip-flop that.
It's not definitive right now.
So the first shift would be 176 and the second shift would be. And then parent pickup in the afternoon is 168. and 125 in the two shifts. The traffic analysis, I kind of alluded to this. The traffic analysis is really, it's just a extrapolation from the existing condition. So the traffic analysis is based on the existing conditions, extrapolated for the increased population. Increasing the number of occupants, of course, increases the amount of traffic and wait times. The recommendations of our traffic engineer, many of which we've incorporated, are to, where possible, separate bus and parent travel, maximize parent queuing, create left and right turn lanes from the site onto North Elm, and if possible, add a traffic detail at that location. Within our developed site plan, we've done the things that we can control. We have provided a lot of queuing for up to 90 vehicles. We've separated bus and parent drop-off once you're on site. Not immediately, but once you're up Stepping Stone Drive. And we've provided right and left turn lanes from Stepping Stone Drive. With those improvements, and I think this may have been said incorrectly 2 weeks ago, but with those improvements, that means that the approximate waiting times to leave the site in the morning is 2 minutes, and in the afternoon is 25 seconds. Those are numbers that you saw 2 weeks ago as well. This is new information. So you can see, boy, the colors are weird up here, but anyway, you can see here, this is the design condition. This is a staggered start, and this is two exit lanes. You can see the 2 minutes, which is, it's 118 seconds, so a second and a half faster. Right now, it's 18 seconds, so that's quite an increase. And leaving in the afternoon is 24 seconds. You see that in those two numbers. This column over here is if the site was set up like it is today, without a staggered start, without 2 lanes exiting, and with the increased number of students, the times would basically explode. To leave the site in the morning would be about 20 minutes. Our traffic engineer warns us, once you get up to numbers this high, it's very approximate. It loses some of its accuracy, but let's just say it's a lot. And the time in the afternoon would be, let's see, what is that? Almost 4 minutes. Any questions on that?
What are the letters? Sorry.
Say that again.
What are
The
A, B?
letters.
Yeah, the A's.
So an A is quick and an F is slow.
Oh, it's a grading. Okay.
I got a question. You ever taken into consideration the buses? Is that going in at the same time?
They are accounted for. I'm not sure I understand the question.
How many buses are included in those cars, with the cars?
How many buses? I believe 5, which is what we've heard from the district.
I believe it's 0.
That 0 buses are accounted for. It's just 5 more trips. It really would not impact these numbers.
My other question was, what about walkers? I didn't see any sidewalks.
Oh, there are definitely
There are
sidewalks. I can
sidewalks.
run through that when we get to the site.
Yes.
There are
There's a new
lots of them.
sidewalk that'll replace the path that goes through the wood, that'll go the entire distance of the road.
Because I know a lot of parents are just gonna drop them off at the end of the street. They're not gonna bother with
And
We'll do
those
that
numbers,
now.
Or maybe they could put them on the bus.
the numbers that you're showing are for the full design enrollment, correct?
Correct.
So which we're not at now, and we'll be probably incrementally closer to that. But we also ran some numbers looking at number of families currently that have, would have a student in an upper and a lower school. It's about 15% of the families. So, we could look at potential just to lessen those second trips if we had some kind of a surround care program or some opportunity to drop off at the first drop off so they wouldn't have to make that second trip. About 25% of the families have a child at the elementary, two or more children at the elementary level. So there is some duplication that we can work on with the school committee to see how we can look at those start times and how we could take some pressure off the numbers.
But Mark, to Mark's point, it's not clear upon opening, so this is only grades 1 through 6. It doesn't have grades, the kindergarten in it. This does, so they're not quite apples to apples, but but upon opening, you're going to be somewhere between this 341, which is where you are, or when this traffic engineer observed the existing condition, and this 581, I think probably closer to the low end of that. You still want to design for, as we're designing the school, for the full enrollment, which is this, but it's not clear exactly when the school will get to that full enrollment.
So, I think my frustration, I talked to Gary and Mark about this in the interim. You'll remember at the last meeting, we didn't have this data,
Yeah.
but you guys did.
No, I did not have this data.
Well, you had to because you cut, the recommendations is cut and paste from the report. It's word for word.
I didn't have this data. I didn't have
That's-
this.
So that's in the report.
This is not in the report. This is something I received from my traffic engineer 2 days ago.
That first column, staggered start end from a C to an F, is in the 16-page report that Mark sent out about 9 days ago.
This data.
Correct.
Correct, yes, sir. Yes. Not all.
That's correct.
Yes.
Right. But in the end, we're not talking about a non-staggered start. We're only talking about a staggered start. So I was concerned, and David, remember you asked, you said, why am I arguing? I didn't know this data. But as I said at the time, I've looked at hundreds of reports and it didn't feel right. And so what I'm concerned about is that we are building a structure that we all, not arguing we don't need it, but we're gonna go from a C to an F. And last time we were discussing the traffic analysis, this was available and it wasn't part of that presentation. And so it frustrated me. And then as I read through the report, it's clear that it is only parent cars. Granted, there's only a handful of buses, I'm not gonna argue that. But like in the afternoon, it says it stays as a C. That may be true. But it says peak time for leaving is 2:30 to 3:30. I have to assume there's gotta be some staff. Now, I'm not gonna argue with the traffic engineer, he knows the stuff better than I do. But staff is not taken into account in the exits in the afternoon.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
All right, well-
I'll tell you why I say that.
Well, page 7 indicates that it does not include anything but parent cars, and the peak time is 2:30
Staff
to
would be
3:30.
leaving.
Okay, so that's-
No, but these numbers here, where he's measuring the existing condition, and again, this is just an extrapolation from that existing condition. If this is a teacher or a parent, he has no idea. He's not interviewing people as they drive in. So if teachers are driving in during that period, they're counted. And if they're driving out during that period, they're counted. So
that bullet point says 412 parent cars. So my point is that if it means that it's all the staff inclusive of it, then so be it. I'm not gonna argue with him. I think my frustration was the fact that regardless of whether it's 412 parent cars or 412 parent cars, buses, and staff, is that we knew 2 weeks ago that we now have degraded that end exit in the morning from a C to an F. And we didn't know, I don't know how many people read the report in the meantime. I know everybody's busy and it was a long report. But I think that at that time we should have been aware of it, especially where I profusely argued at that time and nobody said, well, geez, to let you know, it does fail. And so I think that's important for the entire committee to know. I mean, again, we only have one exit. There's not much we could do. I'm not saying that it kills everything. I'm not saying any of that. I guess I was just disappointed that we wouldn't have said at that time, you know what? It is by, and these are federal standards. This isn't West Bridgewater specific. These are federal standards. And those federal standards, we are now degrading that facility from a C to an F.
I can assure you that there was no intention to hide information. I made these slides, even though I wasn't here 2 weeks ago. And in putting the times here, I felt like I was sharing the information. You're correct. I didn't put the C to an F. And as you say this, perhaps I should have, but I can assure you that there was no intent to hide it.
No, and that's fine. And I didn't use the word intent, so that's not what I was attempting to state.
Yeah,
I just think as a
David, I
committee,
think
we
in this
just need
case,
to know.
you know, I mean, we generally have been in a position of, throughout this process for the committee, is presenting information from the design team, and, you know, we do a draft presentation, and then we follow up to the committee with any changes as a result of the meeting. In this particular case, because of, you know, the sensitivity of the topic and the concerns that it brings up, you know, I mean, I'll take a hit for this too, that the full report that we sent after the last meeting should have gone out in advance, so people could have seen it before we had the discussion 2 weeks ago. I mean, the discussion 2 weeks ago, I felt was very, you know, we just skimmed the surface, which is why I said at that meeting, after you did raise these concerns, we'll send you the full report, and we will put it back on the agenda so we can do a deeper dive as necessary, which is what we're trying to do tonight. I echo your thought, though, that, you know, what the solution is to all this is very limited.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think that a C to an F is a material impact, and I just think it's a full, I think the committee just needs to know that.
Yeah.
And that was my only point.
And that's really a factor, we're putting a lot more people in there, right? We're
Look,
combining
yeah.
schools
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, math is math.
Difficult to do.
But again, correct me if I'm wrong, very rarely, I mean, we have a ZBA person here. I could tell you that if during the permitting process, we were degrading an intersection from a C to an F, there's a high likelihood that they would not accept the permit until they did something with it.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is that there may not be anything we can do, but everybody should just be aware that that information is available, and that is what we're doing. It's just information. People can accept it for good, bad, or anything indifferent.
The thing with the F there, it's, the only thing you're degrading is the exit from the school. You're not degrading really the regular road. That stays A and A. But when I read the report after it came out, we significantly degrade North Elm Street and 106. We significantly degrade Crescent and North Elm. There's a, never mind just our driveway, that goes way up.
Correct, there
So with the amount of trips you're
definitely
adding, it
impact.
doesn't seem, but is that all impact to the school? Is are they also impacting, they say, additional traffic estimates for, at the design level of the school? There seemed to be, there seemed to be a pretty significant downgrade considering what you're doing in terms of a few hours a day, getting people in and out of the school.
For that period.
But you already have, if it's an A or a B, when you have what's already going in there and you're increasing it, but not a ton, that shouldn't go to an F, unless he's also doing, I mean, that's something that kind of jumped out. Because again, I look at this one, it's, yeah, okay, if I'm dropping a kid off, it's gonna take me longer to get out. That's, no, I should let the kid get on the bus.
There will definitely be impacts in the two intersections that you mentioned off-site, and the report speaks to this.
And I think,
And has recommendations related
Were the recommendations specific to the other?
to those two locations.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to the school, the intersection of Crescent and North Elm is already an F.
Yeah.
We're not degrading it. We're just making an F a bigger F.
That's right.
But
right.
that's why my frustration was with this, because you never, ever attempt to have a development actually make the intersection worse. An F to an F, that happens all the time. It stinks. It's the reality of life. But in this case, that's particular, that That's a very rare scenario.
I think we knew, maybe that's not the right way to say it. By putting, I guess it's obvious, but by putting 600 more kids onto this site, the traffic rating was bound to be.
Sure.
Can I add though, conversely, it's gonna significantly improve the Howard, Spring Street, 106, 28 area, which is arguably the worst area of traffic in the entire town. So it's taking a lot of pressure off that. We consistently have issues with parents coming in through the middle senior high school, through Spring Street, creating somewhat unsafe environment. Thank you to our SRO and our administration for helping to work to get cars out of there, but it's gonna increase the safety and the decrease the traffic, and again, our worst area of traffic in the entire town.
The other thing I'm realizing as we talk about this now, so this is fresh in my head, is that the traffic report and the way the traffic engineering is calculated, he took the site that we've got and he calculated it for more people. But I don't know that he said, okay, those people are coming from over here, so there's gonna be cars hitting that intersection from this direction, there's gonna be fewer of them. I don't know that he took that reduction into account.
Yeah, it's a question of how far does
I
the
can
study
talk to him,
go
I
out?
can talk to him about that and see if he can, I don't know if he's able to get data on that because his scope was fairly limited in terms of what he's studied, but I can see if there's a way to think about that.
What they have up there though is, it says North Elm Street, northbound approach. That's coming from 106. How about the southbound approach?
It
That's what we're
is,
talking about with the Crescent Street.
it is similarly, my recollection is it's similarly unaffected,
It's similar,
not heavily affected.
but it is affected. Not heavily, but it is going to be affected.
Correct. Like, I mean, you see this one going from 2.4 seconds to 5.8 seconds. My recollection is that whatever grade it has stays the same. I'd like to double check that in the report, but that's my recollection. And this chart, I actually thought about cutting this so that it was just a stepping stone approach, because that's really the point of this one. This is something he produced, again, 2 days ago, to understand, if you just look at these numbers and you don't understand the impact that the improvements are having, it just felt a little bit like looking at it with blinders. So that's why I asked them for this extra information.
You may not take any comfort in this, but the committee for this building went through the same issue with Howard and West Center. And we made, the traffic study that was done for this project made that intersection worse. The traffic lights that eventually got installed there did not come out of any action of the traffic study for this building. It came well after that. But it was clear, the traffic study that was done for this building, we were making that intersection much worse than it was, if you can believe it. But it certainly that was the case. But it was just we have to live with it.
The other thing to think about, and this is kind of a bigger picture, involves the school committee, it can happen after the fact, is what if we can get more kids on the bus? What if we look at our policies and we look at our pay to ride and we look at our buses, we have to look at the budget, but if we can get more kids on the bus, then we can reduce the number of cars coming in. It's just something to think about.
All right, is there anything else that we need to bring up on this?
Do we think that having a detail will change the numbers significantly?
I can get you data on that, I don't know.
Because I'm concerned about that just from a budget standpoint. I don't know, I mean, have you thought about that, Mark, like what that looks like for you?
No, I mean, not at this point. I mean, again, 2 minutes at maximum capacity, I mean, that's long, but I don't think that's out of the realm of expectations for large schools. And again, that's at, we're about 75%, so something we're not looking at right now.
Anything else? All right?
I have something else. I want to make sure that I'm responsive to everybody. I will bring back an answer to the question of how does getting a detail impact these times, if he has that information. Is there anything else anybody wants me to bring back to this committee related to this conversation? Okay, fair enough. If you think of anything, let me know and I'll work on it. Okay, so moving on to the schematic design documents. Throughout the process of schematic design, we've moved this project quite far along. And as I mentioned, the documents today went out to the estimators for the cost estimate. So we've got a document set. We've significantly developed the plan for the building. We're at this point showing all of the spaces and all of the doors and toilets and all the spaces of the size that they're supposed to be. The building's been made very efficient. We're within the 1.5 net to gross ratio. And we're proud of that. And we think that this project has really developed nicely. There's been a lot of there's been some program refinement. We did a lot of it in the earlier phases during schematic design. You're really pushing at the edges at that point, but there's been some program refinement. I'll review some of that. As you know, at the last meeting and the sustainability committee meeting before that, there was a system selection for the mechanical, which is a big decision, a big thing to have gotten to. And there's been site development throughout this process. So speaking to some of the plan development, I'm going to take these a little bit out of order. We've presented to this committee detail and development on the extended learning commons. The other thing is we've really developed the special education distribution, meaning there's a lot of special education spaces within the program and where they are within the building and how to make them kind of equitably distributed across the building in a way that DESE will approve. That's all been worked out with Mark and his team and is ready to be submitted to DESE essentially. We've also really developed a plan for the toilet rooms, which I'll speak a little bit more about, and we've developed a plan for and we've developed the sort of smaller spaces, the fine grain within the medical suite, the admin suite, and all of the spaces really. So coming back to the toilet rooms are planned with, and this is through working with the district and the admin group. The toilet rooms are planned as individual, single user, each fitted out with a toilet rooms with walls and doors, not toilet partitions. And so the idea is that these toilet rooms are similar to what everyone knows at home, what we're used to. They provide great privacy and security. So that's what you're seeing here are 4 student toilet rooms, each fitted out again with a toilet. One of them with ADA accessible grab bars and clearances, so that's the larger one. Then outside of that is a larger space with sinks that is wide open to the corridor. So this can be very observed, it can be monitored very easily and safely from the corridor. Again, a student in the bathroom is in a room. This isn't a bathroom with toilet partitions that everybody's looking in at. This is a room with a door. And then this is a staff bathroom, a custodial room, and depending on, here it's an electrical room, depending on where it is in the building, and various services.
So there's no door from the hallway into
There's
that
no,
area?
not only
That's
is there
just
no
wide
door,
open.
but there's a wide opening so that it is viewed. The door, the privacy,
Those are all-
the point
those
of
are full-
privacy is here.
Floor to ceiling walls, full
Yes.
actual rooms.
Correct, correct.
3 feet wide?
The doors? Yeah.
No, the rooms around the time you get.
They're more.
They're a little over that.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe 3.8.
They're a little over that because of the doors 3, so.
And the idea is, the district was really, we had a plan where there was not this space. It was kind of off of a corridor as opposed to sort of being more open. And the district really wanted there to be more supervision of people walking through the corridor, of teachers. And so that's how we got this really opened up. The idea being that people can see, that door is closed, this door is open, it can be really well monitored. But the idea is like at home and, really pushing safety. What districts who've done this have found is, and maybe this is anecdotally, but I think there's some data on this, is that there's less bullying in bathrooms in this configuration, and significantly less vandalism. Which, maybe at this age group you don't worry as much about, but still some.
It's going up to 6 today.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
And also, I'd say too, every year we struggle with students who won't use the bathroom.
Can you
because
say that again, I'm sorry?
Every year we deal with students who won't use the bathroom because they don't want to go in with other children, so this will eliminate that as well.
Okay, any questions on any of that?
And just a point of reference, kindergarten bathrooms are in the classroom.
Thank you, yes, absolutely. There are kindergarten bathrooms with little tiny toilets in the kindergarten classroom.
So each one of those, you'd have one of those set up for boys' rooms, girls' rooms? You're gonna have both in the same with the one?
Correct. Each room can be used by whoever gets there first.
I don't want to be sitting in the back room when you tell that to me.
It's like a swanky hotel.
No, that's not for kids, that's for all of them, right?
No, so kindergarten is single gender, but these bathrooms are gendered, yes?
No.
No.
Can those bathrooms be gendered if they need to be,
No.
based on plumbing code?
No.
No.
That's one of the benefits is by plumbing count, you need twice as many toilets to fit the school's
Right.
needs.
We were able to have significantly less.
So this is a lot more
plumbing count, so
effective
it's a-
cost-wise as well.
Well, I get it, I just think that's gonna be a little bit
Again,
of a tough sell.
the idea is that it's like what people are used to at home. Bathrooms at home are not gendered.
Are we gonna get into this level of detail at the presentation for the
Well,
town?
that's what I'm wondering, because that's, you're used to that at home, but there also isn't another bathroom next door that somebody that might live 3 blocks away is using at the same time. And then when you come out, you don't have, and that's,
But it's very open to, we envision the wash area as something where kids are gonna be coming and going if they need to wash their hands, and they have an individual space to go to use a bathroom.
Can you just remind me, is this a walk-through area, like if?
Yes.
So-
Oh, yeah, sorry. That's actually a great point. Yeah, I clipped this a little tight. I apologize. This is the front door.
Yeah.
This is the cafeteria. And this is the court. This line is an architectural graphic thing, ignore it. This is the corridor leading to the academic wing.
Okay.
So the corridor runs right through there. Another thing that's kind of cool and worth pointing out, this is the medical suite made up of 5 beds, 2 of them in private rooms, 3 of them with kind of curtains, a meeting space for the medical staff the nurses to talk to parents, a couple of toilets. my point in bringing this up is, again, this is the front door. They will have a direct access directly to the outside, which you see there.
So is that an actual rendering of what would be servicing the cafeteria area? So it'd be 4 toilets?
There's
another
there's
side.
4 toilets. There's 4 toilets on this side plus the staff, and then on the other side, there's another 4.
And that works into the numbers?
Absolutely. Anything else on this? Okay. I was talking about building design and plan development. Plan development, building design also means, we've been really looking at this in 3 dimensions. What you can't quite see here, I apologize, are building elevations, but what it represents is that we really understand the building in 3 dimensions. You've got which volumes are which height and how the roofs are working. It's all there, and the reason that that's important is that the estimators can quantify this. And so that plays into how good an estimate is. And the point is, this is a really important estimate because this sets the cost for, or the budget for the vote.
Just speaking on elevation, we are scheduling the meeting with ZBA to go over the variance for the height of the 3rd story.
And the other thing is, our engineers have begun, really looking at this building in detail. You can see the structural model is, right where we are. It's caught up to where we are. Program refinement. So, since the last time you've seen one of these charts, which was when we were submitting the preferred schematic report, we've managed to reduce the size of the building. The big move for that was when we cut the district offices, right? So that's that change there. There's some other much smaller changes, but I mean that's really the big one. The other thing that we've managed to do in working with the district is to get all of the categories, square footages, either equal to or less than the MSBA guidelines, with the exception of special education. Again, you've heard this from us a while ago, but assuming that DESI approves the special education plan, which we've never seen them not. Sometimes they have very minor comments, but we've never seen them not. MSBA will pay for this larger number. So what that means is that every square foot of this building, as planned here, will be within the MSBA grant. Any questions on that?
It's a pretty significant statement, one we want to carry around with us moving forward.
Great.
Apologies, I have to leave.
Thanks, Art. I already mentioned the system selection. The mechanical system will be air source heat pump. It's an all-electric building, with the exception of the backup generator. Other systems are, it's a steel building. There'll be rainwater retention system that our engineers are defining, and that'll be all within the cost estimate. And of course, we've talked about the septic system a few times. There's also been a significant amount of plan development, as well as meeting with town officials. We've been pulling in as much as we can. At this point, we are maintaining the 60-foot buffer that we've been talking about between the abutters to the south and any work. We're almost everywhere we are out of the 50-foot buffer. But there are some locations, 50-foot wetland buffer, excuse me. There are some locations where we can't get out of it because we are highly limited in where we can locate this building because we need to build it with the existing building in place. And so the road required for emergency access does sometimes go into that 50-foot buffer.
And what did Comcom say about that?
Concom said that we have to be able to define the hardship anytime we are newly within any new ground that's in the 50-foot buffer. The plan is that that hardship is the requirement for emergency access around 360 degrees around the new building. That and sort of the inability to demo the building first and then build the building where it is.
And have they given you any comments back on that? Have they given you?
We haven't done it full final with them. We met with them. to
So
go
what
over
was
it.
the conversation then? That's what I'm asking. Like, what was the resolution, or what was the gist?
We hadn't
that
even
you
done
feel?
the refinement that you're seeing here at that point in time, so we haven't had the follow-up discussion with them. But I think the point that James is making about public safety is gonna be a strong one. We can't speak for the two chiefs, they're not here tonight, but they've already gone on record at a couple of meetings saying how important that access road is. We don't have one now. We suffered a fire that was part
No,
of.
I understand the need
back there
for it.
without
I'm
the
just wondering where
expert.
Concom sits with it and
Yeah.
where we stand with that. That's all.
I don't know that we're going to know that until we until we really finalize permitting, which doesn't happen before the vote. We do know one of the things that they asked for, and I here it is, was to relocate the road coming in. We were already relocating the road, but to design it so that it would overlap the existing road. So now it's really within much closer to the wetlands, much more within the 50, but it's riding over where the existing road is. Whereas this was not, we were kind of getting it further from the wetlands, but also closer to these wetlands. It all made sense, but this makes sense too. So this is kind of in process, but we have made this change in terms of the set going to the estimator. Who was asking about sidewalks?
Jim.
Jim. Okay, so we have a sidewalk starting here and coming all the way up to here. A crossing, and then sidewalks all the way around to the front door, and all the way around back here to this front door, and around here. There's also a sidewalk coming this way and to this entrance over here. So there's sidewalks throughout the site, and then there's also, in the base cost, they'll be replacing the path to Crescent in kind, so with asphalt from here up to Crescent. My understanding is that there's significant development happening close to where this hits Crescent, but that may get a lot more traffic. Yeah.
Does the new road configuration have the two bridges still?
So that was feedback that we got from Concom. It does not, for two reasons. One, we're not crossing the wetlands here anymore. We're up where the road was, where there's not wetlands. We are crossing the culvert. They've asked, they haven't asked. They expressed a preference for the culvert, and so we're planning for a new culvert instead of a wooden bridge.
Okay.
I believe that's it. So any questions on that? Okay. Mitch?
There you go.
Thank you. You guys have any questions for James before we flip through?
I just got that.
Okay. Just double check. So we did update the FAQs on the website a couple weeks ago, so there's a handful of new FAQs on there. I couldn't expand all of the answers at once here, but you can go onto the website and take a look at those. You know, start to get the word out to friends and family about the project and the website and FAQs, and if everybody has any ideas for any specific FAQs, feel free to email the project team that's listed on the website, and we can certainly take a look at those. We're welcome to feedback on any of those that you think would be useful for the community.
Do people know how to email project team for questions or any of James's?
The email should be on the website too.
Okay.
Contact us.
Well, that was just a well, that was a general question here of like, do people know you can find it there?
Okay.
And you can, anyone on the PMA project team, you can email any one of us and we'll make sure the FAQs get answered. So if you can't find us for some reason there, go in your emails. We've sent you other things, just respond to that.
Or just send it to Mark or myself.
Yeah, we'll get it one way. Budget update, no updates since the last meeting, so the cash flow is still the same as previously. As far as schedule goes, we're working towards that October 23rd submission to the MSBA for the schematic design. So the SD drawing set is going to go to the estimators tonight. The school building committee is having it now. Then we have a handful of curriculum nights that we are attending to try to get some outreach out there for the project. There was one at the middle senior high school last week. This week is at Howard. That's Thursday night at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I just, I was at the one here last week. I plan to attend them all, and the comments from the folks that stopped by the display were very positive. We had one ask about cost. I think she had been to at least one of the forums where we had put one of the original estimates or the comparisons of the different options we were looking at. I sensed a very positive response to certainly the need. So it was pretty encouraging.
Yep, so we'll be at that one, we'll be on all these, and then you can just see the school building committee dates on here as a reminder, 9/23, 10/7, 10/21, and then our submission date to the MSBA of 10/23.
Can you add the Spring Street School curriculum night as well?
October 9th.
October
I was gonna
9th,
say,
yeah, sorry.
October 9th, right?
That's 6 to 7, correct?
Yeah, we have that in our calendars, but we'll update the slides. That's it, anybody have any questions?
Anything else that needs to come before the committee? All right, well, thank you for all the discussion tonight. Obviously, a big vote with the delivery method, so we appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much.